No, I wrote down a lot of keywords that really resonated with me, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners as well. And so I want to go back to first what Kate said and kind of go through some of the stories that y'all just told. And um, Kate, when you were talking about the feeling that you had earlier in your career, and your body's giving you this signal that something's not right, and you came to the conclusion, this is my ego keeping me with the golden handcuffs. Well, Dan, I know we were kind of exchanging smirks because I'm in that right now, and very much so. And it's really hard when you feel like you have a big load that you're carrying for your team or people that you support in the organization, and you're really struggling. And so when do you have that courage? As Maya, you said, the courage to recognize what you're in the throes of. And then James, what you mentioned about, it's really, the mindset shift, like these people who are, once they broke the 4-minute mile and they were able to say, okay, this is not a physical thing, this is a mental thing, and we can break ourselves of this. So my question for all of you is, how do you help coach someone through a failure when they're maybe in the midst of a failure or post failure, and they're so tightly wound to the negative mindset and not able to open themselves and free themselves into what was the learning from this so that they can move forward? How do you help coach someone through that?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I love that question because honestly, I thought a lot about this at the beginning of the pandemic, right? And people were like, resiliency, and resiliency is a very big topic in positive psychology, right? And I was just seeing how people like misconstrued it. And like the first step to resiliency is resting. It's like actually dealing with what has happened, whether it is a tragedy or a terrible review or a pissed off client. Like you have to give yourself space, right? And your body will let you know when it's time to start being like, okay, I can reassess. But like we as a culture are terrible at stopping and actually allowing for those emotions to flood us. Because when we don't, guess what? You're just shoving it into the closet, and eventually that closet will just burst open. Like you have to process the emotion. Doesn't matter. Nobody gets to avoid that process, right? And so I think that's really important. And so I definitely tell my clients to like take it easy. Self-compassion's obviously been a really hot topic for a while. Kristen Neff is amazing. We're also not taught that in our culture, like we're taught to work hard. We're taught to work so hard. We're so good at that. Like I'm not even mildly worried about how hard we work, but the other components, like there's so much more to our lives than just hard work. And here we are, like companies doing better than ever, in a pandemic, and, people are more burnt out than ever.
Yeah.
And so, also being fair, Alicia, for anybody in the golden handcuff situation or just like in the thick of it, like not expecting, right? I have a lot of people saying, well, like I need to figure out my next thing. I saw this even like on a news station, or I would even say it was like, you should know what you're going to do next before you jump, and like it's easier to have a job. Oh, I hate this one. It's easier to get a job when you have a job. Guess what? You're probably not going to get the right job for yourself if that's how you're doing things. Like you have to create space for yourself, and you have to learn how to trust yourself, right? Like don't trust other people, trust yourself and trust the timing, because like it's in space that creativity and the best of you comes alive, right? Like when you're exhausted and burnt out and you're in the thick of it, guess what? You're just going to get crap out of your brain, right? It's like, I'm not playing. So like, wait until it's willing to play. So I would say like some of the things that's been most important to me, I'm about to write a blog on it, is like, I hope everybody loses their job at least twice. I hope it happens when they're young, and I hopefully have like very little monetary reserves because they can deal with that stress, and then later on. Because it's a skill, and that is actually, I would say, a gift, because I have had to sit with the idea, and I love that Maya and James, you brought this up. It's like getting space between who you are as a professional and who you are as a human being. And I can say without a doubt that I am just as valuable as a human being when I don't have a job as when I do, right? Like 100% not a doubt. But like that would have only been learned and understood if I had to sit with it, right? For people who jump from job to job since they were 12 years old, they have no idea, right? And they're going to have to learn it the hard way. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that was kind of wrapped up in a story as well.
No, it definitely does. I think that's super helpful and insightful. I think people almost have to find a way to give themselves permission to be okay with that space in between, because like you said, our society is just busy, 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 busy. And if you're not being busy, you're not being productive, and therefore you're not as valued. And that's, who came up with that and decided that was the thing we were all going to believe, you know?
Probably white men.
So I want to jump in on
can I
that.
add one more thing? Sorry, really quick before I forget, Maya. I just want to say it's never going to feel easy to quit your job. Like, a lot of people are waiting for it to feel easy and good, and I promise that will never happen. So I will leave it at that, please, Maya.
So a few things. I'm going to try to also answer your original question, but I want to respond to what you and Kate were just saying, which is, you know, I often, when I'm with like management teams and I have the opportunity, a whiteboard or a Zoom whiteboard or whatever, I will write out the word business and the word busyness with a Y and say, like, these two things are not equal. Like, those two words, we associate them, we conflate them in a very destructive way. And someone the other day, this is something that I've been working through in my own personal work that I do in parallel to the work that I do with my clients, the work I do with myself, that busy people are important people. And working through breaking apart that paradigm and throwing it in the garbage and just saying, like, someone the other day texted me, DM'd me on Instagram and was like, how's Brave Roomy going? You busy these days? And I wrote back and said, right now I am trying to catch fruit flies in a bowl of vinegar and a rotten banana peel. That's what I'm doing right now. And yes, business is going great.
Like, that's what I remember. That
mic drop.
That is I don't need to be busy to be successful. I think that is something that is so important for people to be able to internalize and find their own way to be able to live that. And I think, Kate, what you said before about people getting to those conclusions on their own, that's not the kind of thing I would tell a client that they should think, but I could help people break apart the busy equals important from each other. But to go back to your original question, Alicia, about how do I help my clients get through this? I want to add in empathy, which is something that we haven't thrown out as a word yet, but I think it's so important when people are like in the pit, just climb in there, be with them, and just say, yep. You know, really sometimes the silence and just letting the person, offering the encouragement of the how, like Kate said before, but we don't need to solve it in the first 2 minutes. I think at the beginning of if I think back to kind of the demos at the beginning of my coaching course, it was like we'd so quickly jump to answers. And since we mentioned Brene, I'll say that there's an episode of the Dare to Lead podcast on Spotify with a guy who has 3 names, Michael something, and he's a coach, and he wrote this book, The Advice Trap, and how quickly we jump. As humans, we have this instinct to want to offer people solutions. He offers like 7 coaching questions. It's great. I enjoyed the interview, so I would recommend it to others as well.
Add that to the list.
Yeah. So just holding back that instinct to offer advice and holding back, just instead replace it with a lot of space in the moment for the person.
Yeah. And that's Michael Bungay Stanier.
Yes.
The Advice Trap.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. He's Australian.
I was about to say, he has a great accent to listen to.
Fun listening to him.
I love that. I know one of the leaders that I used to work with, she was very quick to try to solve your issue. And because she got a lot of feedback, like, I don't want you to solve my issue, I just want you to listen, or whatever it was. She got this little sign on her desk, and it says, one side says listen, and the other side says help. And so when you come in, you want to talk to her, you would let her know, okay, I need to think out loud. I need to process this out loud. And she'd say, okay, I'm going to sit back. I'm all yours. I'm listening. And then if someone asked for the advice, they could solution together. Because sometimes I think people don't even know what they need. They don't even know what they want. You know, they're just out there venting, and then someone's offering them suggestions and they're getting more frustrated and they just need someone to sit. But a good coach, like all of you, know when to do that. They can read from their client. When do I sit back and I give them, you know, that empathy that they need?
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
James, sorry to cut you off.
No, that's fine. And it's, yeah, the one of the fascinating aspects about coaching practices in general, I think, is it always fascinates me that just getting people to talk about things and to be open and vulnerable, and open and vulnerable with your coach, open and vulnerable with yourself, and you're just coming to those realities. All of a sudden, lights will go off. People will have breakthroughs just by explaining their issue to you. When clients of mine are kind of in that kind of those depths, I'm reminded of. I think the saying is used when you're in the Marines, and that's embrace the suck, and that is really just to and that goes back to what Kate said, what Maya said about just kind of getting and allowing yourself space and let it allow yourself to be immersed in the situation. And I thought about, I can't remember where I read this, but it's kind of a grieving process, really, where you suffer the grief, but then once you transition through that, there is growth after that, and that's just kind of the natural progression when we lose someone. And I would be remiss if I didn't honor a wonderful woman who we lost today, someone who was very special in my life. My Aunt Dottie passed away yesterday. Aunt Dottie, who lost her husband when he was 53 years old, and when he was 53, the youngest of their 12 children was 2 years old. And Aunt Dottie passed away. She turned 100 in June, and and just what that woman taught all of us in the family was just remarkable, and just her strength through the grief and being able to show that strength and raise a family of 12 was really amazing. I just, one other thing that I also want to mention, because I think a lot of times that failure is a inappropriate perception, because a lot of times we're so caught up in comparing ourselves to other people, and it's Jordan Peterson's fourth rule of life. It's never compare yourself to who someone else is today. All you need to do is compare yourself to who you were yesterday, and that is a difficult thing to do when you're caught up in corporate life, when you're caught up in trying to keep up with the Joneses in this culture that we live in. That is just such a difficult thing to do, but it's a fool's errand if you really think about it, because you don't know what those other people have gone through. You don't know what they've had to do to accomplish what they've gotten. You don't know what kind of crap exists in their life that they've got to deal with on a day-to-day basis. You just don't know. And you have to kind of respect that you don't know. And that gets back to the empathizing, giving space, giving people that space to really be open and vulnerable is very important.
Yeah. May your aunt's memory be for a blessing.
Thank you.